Look, I know we just got through a cycle of the full moon, but what the heck is going on? Cruise chaos ensues. We've got another ship losing its ability to steer, cruise passengers injured. We've got a cruise couple stranded in Africa after they've missed their ship. And we've got passengers denied boarding, a lot of them denied boarding, and we're not really sure who's to blame. This would be a nightmare, stuck at the embarkation port with no way to get on the cruise ship. I guess it's a Monday. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lita Loga. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views. For your face on Monday the 1st of April. April is in my mistress face. That's an old English madrigal. I don't even know what that means. April the 1st, 2024. I got no April Fool's jokes for you. There's just enough regular weirdness going on that maybe we think the whole show could be. None of this is April Fool's. This is just like, holy moly, what the heck is going on, fools? And let's start with cruise news story number 1. We have a Bulgarian river cruise boat crashing in Austria, injuring 17 cruise passengers. And dig this, why did it crash? Well, there was a sudden loss of the ability to steer the vessel. They had they had a malfunction of the navigation system. They were unable to steer, and it crashed into like just a wall, just a simple wall crash, but it hit it with enough force that 17 people were injured. You can't help but think of the similarities of the event that happened just last week when the cargo ship Dali lost power, lost its ability to steer, and then ended up collapsing the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. What is going on? They were able to get the power back on just by hitting the emergency reset button. They almost like it rebooted it. Unfortunately, people went to the hospital, but fortunately there's no fatalities. Maybe it's the full moon, maybe it's just bad circumstance. That happened a few days ago, so hopefully all this stuff is just March stuff and we can start fresh here in April. And real quickly, speaking of Baltimore, I've been getting confirmation from several people that were on the Carnival Legend that had to be rerouted to Norfolk, Virginia, that got bused to Baltimore, that they did indeed by Carnival get bused from Norfolk up to Baltimore. Sounds like it was a 4.5-5 hour ride on a bus, but it does seem like the people that were on the Legend got relocated back to where they needed to go in Baltimore. Of course, we know Baltimore, the port there is closed down for the short term. I'm not sure when that will reopen again, and cruise lines are rerouting their ships to Norfolk, Virginia. I think I mentioned it last week. I'm jumping on a cruise on the 7th, and even on my cruise planner, it still says it's supposed to terminate in Baltimore, but I know that I don't think that's going to happen. It starts on the 7th and it ends on the 21st. I would be super shocked if I get off that ship in Baltimore. I'm just waiting for it to change on my cruise planner to Norfolk. I need to book a flight home. But a big shout out to everybody that got off the Carnival Legend, and shout out to everybody that's getting off the Vision of the Seas for Royal Caribbean. Glad you guys are back on land, and we're still waiting to see if anything else changes with future cruises. Cruise news story number 3. Let's talk about the South Carolinian couple that have traveled 5,960 miles from their home in South Carolina to Africa. And this is a wild one. This is a wild, multi-layered one. Couple from South Carolina. They're on a 21-day cruise on the NCL Dawn. They're off the west coast of Africa visiting Sao Tome and Principe. This is an island there. They had to take a tender from the NCL Dawn, or water shuttle. This is a smaller boat that will take you from the ship to land because that port of call doesn't have their own dock. And so they went on a tour with several other folks. And after they completed their tour and returned back to the spot where they're supposed to take the tender boat back to the ship, to the NCL Dawn, well, the tender never came. And while checking the watch, the reason the tender never came is because they were there after the all aboard time, after the last tender had already gone to the NCL Dawn. Now, the wild thing about this is they could still see the NCL Dawn, moored, anchored off in the distance. They were scrambling to figure out what to do. Quick thinking, they enlisted the help of the Coast Guard there on the island. They all boarded a Coast Guard vessel and took the Coast Guard vessel over to the NCL Dawn Dawn, and the NCL Dawn was not able to receive them. They told the Coast Guard that they needed to return the passengers back to the island and that the passengers would have to figure out what to do next. That's what happened. They sent the passengers back to the island. The cruise ship sent someone, I don't know where in the timeline, someone over to the island with these folks' passports, and then they bugged out. So the people watched as the cruise ship left after they even tried to get on there. So now all these folks are jumping through hoops trying to figure out what paperwork they can get to possibly get home or meet the next ship, and apparently it's not easy. Apparently they're having a hard time, and it looks like there's about 9 people in all that did not make the ship that day. 8 people were on the tour that got back late, and then 1 person was in the hospital from an injury, but they all ended up kind of coalesced together. And it's a motley crew. There's a pregnant person, there's a disabled person, a quadriplegic person, the older folks, and a lot of people don't have their money and they don't have their medicine, they don't have their paperwork. The South Carolinian couple, they're letting everybody use their credit cards. So far they paid over $5,000 in food, toiletries, and hotels for the group of 9. And they're really uncertain what's going to happen next. Now, the NCL did give an official statement in regards to this incident, and it's not a surprising statement. They said on the afternoon of March the 27th, 2024, while the ship was in Sao Tome and Principe, an African island nation, 8 guests who were on the island on their own with a private tour missed the last tender back to the vessel, therefore not meeting the all-aboard time of 3 p.m. local time. While this is a very unfortunate situation, guests are responsible for ensuring that they return to the ship at the published time, which is communicated broadly over the ship's intercom and the daily communications and posted just before exiting the vessel. Guests are responsible for any necessary travel costs to rejoin the ship at the next available port of call. When the guests did not return to the vessel at the all-aboard time, their passports were delivered to the local port agent to retrieve when they returned to the port. Our team has been working closely with local authorities to understand the requirements and the necessary visas needed if the guests were to rejoin the ship at the next port of call. We are in communication with the guests and providing additional information as it becomes available. This is a mess and a huge cautionary tale for all of us cruisers out there. This was a third-party excursion that I guess did not have a guarantee to get you to wherever you need to go next if they were late. You're going to save money if you take a third-party excursion, and a lot of times it works out. But it's a risk reward kind of thing. Sometimes I like paying the extra money in places that I'm unfamiliar with to go, do the ship excursion, so I know that if something like this happens, the cruise line's definitely going to take care of me. Doesn't sound like Norwegian's trying to work with these people, but cruise ships have to keep the hard line that if you don't make it back to the cruise ship, they have to go. They have to move on. So I don't know, man. It's weird to me though. Like I don't know how it played out when they took the people by Coast Guard to the ship. I'm assuming it, if they've already, started, lifting the anchor and, they closed off all the tendering. They've pulled up the little dock that they use to tender. I'm sure it could be a more of a, hassle and expense than getting these people back on board. But gosh, that would be a rough call. I think that'd be a rough call, Cap. Like they're right there on the boat. What do you do? It really makes me think what I take off the cruise ship for excursion. There's people there without medicine. There's people there without cash. And I know I've been off the cruise ship without medicine and cash before. Maybe I rethink that when I go on even the most simple excursion. What do you think about this situation? Did the cruisers bring it upon themselves? Is there something more that NCL could have done? What would you have done in this situation? Leave a comment below. Now, I got to tell you about these cruise passengers that got denied boarding on embarkation day on a dream-themed cruise on a Carnival cruise ship. I think this story is going to end up in court. The people's court. Somebody wake up Judge Wapner. We got a big old case coming for you. But before I do that, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. Be a part of the Loca fam. Man, we got to 249,000 subscribers. We're less than 1,000 to that next big milestone. 250,000, y'all. Be a part of that number. It doesn't cost anything, and that way you stay up to date with all of the cruise news. Big thank you in advance. Well, here's a cruise news story that you may not have been able to escape over the weekend. there is a group of cruise passengers that were going on a 90s music theme cruise that made their way to Miami, Florida to get on the Carnival Horizon. And when they got to the cruise port, they were notified by Carnival Cruise Line that even though you traveled all this way, you don't actually have a booking on the Carnival Horizon. Your name is not on the manifest. What was your name? No, we don't have it here. So sorry. Now, the wild thing is these folks, they booked their cruise through a travel agent. And so while they were there trying to see if their name was on the list, the travel agent comes walking by and they're like, hey, travel agent, you remember that cruise that you booked for us that's taking off today? For some reason, our name's not on the list. And while the travel agent is like, well, my name's on the list. I'm going to go on the cruise, on the ship, and we'll see what we can figure out. Hang tight. And she got on the ship, and then the ship left, and the people were still standing there at the dock with their travel agent gone pecan, sailing off into the distance. Now, this is a convoluted mess. The travel agent says that she booked these people their cruise and that it was Carnival's fault that they got canceled. Back in February, they canceled these folks out and they were unable to rebook them, which that's what she said, which is wild to me because you would think that if you knew that these people got cancellated, but they didn't get rebooked because there was no more room at the inn, that they would have called and said, hey, look, you got cancellated. But apparently that didn't happen. And, she was part of a bigger group. Like she had more than just these people that were stranded. So she goes cruising and she's published a statement saying there's definitely been a mistake. She's taking the blame for it. She wants to make sure that these people get refunded and get some sort of extra compensation. But again, it's pretty hardcore. Pretty hardcore when you get to the cruise port, find out your name's not on the list, and then the person that was helping you gets on the cruise and leaves you behind. And so you can see why people are upset. From what I can tell about this story, nobody has gotten their money back yet. That is a process. Most of the time, you can't just flip a switch and return money automatically. But again, if this whole thing went down in February, I don't know. We'll continue to watch it. I don't want to pass too much judgment. The thing I do want to say from a commentary perspective, particularly about using travel services, travel agents, travel professionals, whenever you book a cruise with somebody, the end result should be that you get a booking number provided by the cruise line that you can take onto the cruise line website and manage your booking. Now, if you're using a travel agent, you're not going to be able to pay for your cruise that way, but you're going to be able to do everything else. So if it's a Carnival booking, you go to that Carnival website, you put in your booking, you associate that booking with your user profile, and then you can book your excursions. You can buy your drink package. You can buy your internet. You can buy your specialty dining. You can have gifts sent to your room. You should be able to do all of that after you make your initial deposit through a travel agent. So if you use a travel agent and you don't get a booking number and you can't go to the website of your cruise line and do any of that, that is a big red flag. Now, in this circumstance, again, the travel agent said they were booked up until a point before their bookings were canceled. So you would have been able maybe to verify and to book your internet, that kind of thing. But especially a week out from the cruise, it's probably a good idea to go into the cruise line's website and see if you still have a booking. You just want to take it for granted. You might be a new cruiser. You might be a seasoned cruiser. You might want to just take all that for granted, but don't. Because there's stories like this. Again, I think somebody's going to have to wake up Judge Wapner because this sounds like a case for the dan. Boom, that's your cruise news. Hope you're having an awesome Monday. Thank you so much for checking out the show. Hit that like button on the way out. Tony for La Lido Loca. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye. Cruise.